Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
And you join us live now in Westminster as the Remain demonstration, which had gathered in Trafalgar Square, has now cascaded down Whitehall and is now outside Parliament. And this is a demonstration which was originally cancelled because it didn't have adequate police permission and is now a spontaneous demonstration. It's very hard to say what the numbers are, but we'll keep you appraised. Now, there were some signs of recovery in the UK financial markets today, led by sectors that have been worst hit in the past 2 days' trading: airlines, banks, property. This came as the Chancellor, George Osborne, warned that the UK faced further economic setbacks and said that there would be tax rises and spending cuts. Our business correspondent, Helia Ebrahimi, has this report.
So you go in and do that case.
They claimed they had an economic plan that was working, but today George Osborne's march of the makers looked to be falling by the wayside.
Well, it's all in 2 days. Yeah.
While the markets calmed, real businesses were demanding answers about how Britain's trade with Europe will survive. For Mr. Osborne, the message was to fight for access to the single market, something dismissed as cherry-picking by Angela Merkel in Berlin today.
I will be strongly arguing that we should try and maintain the closest possible economic ties in terms of our access to European markets, to the single market, for our goods and crucially for our services and crucially, looking around us here, our financial services.
A bit far-fetched, since the referendum centred on halting free movement of labour. But it seems the Chancellor, the business bosses and indeed even Boris Johnson are clinging to this rather disjointed strategy today. In the meantime, the real risks are being felt by the Chancellor's key industrial projects, some of which seem unlikely to survive. The High-Speed 2 rail link has a hefty £56 billion price tag and has faced hostility from more than 30 backbench Tory MPs. EDF's nuclear power station at Hinkley Point looks set to lose a sponsor if George Osborne leaves the Treasury, and it's not loved by Boris Johnson either. And the third runway at Heathrow could be doomed given Mr. Johnson's promise to lie down in front of bulldozers to stop it ever happening. But when the great and the good of industry met the business secretary, there seemed to be more questions than answers. Sajid Javid said the business of government would continue, but he also conceded he couldn't make any promises. And by the way, he was now also campaigning as part of Stephen Crabb's leadership bid. And then there was this, a script line borrowed from the Chancellor.
The UK is still a member of the European Union and still a member of the single market.
One pressing project is the rescue of Port Talbot. Thousands of jobs on the line and a £15 billion pension scheme at risk of having to be bailed out. Would the government keep to its promise on sorting out the scheme?
In terms of the financial support, we said in terms of if there's a viable plan that comes forward that secures the long-term commercial viability of the business, then it is possible for the government to help with both debt and equity on commercial terms. That hasn't changed.
And on the pensions?
We're now in the process of going through the responses to the consultation, and we'll come out in due course with what we may or may not be able to do.
The fear for unions and for buyers is that this shattered government will choose simply to do nothing.
Well, with all that noise in Westminster, the microphone is momentarily passed to Brussels. Now, that is a pro-Remain, anti-Brexit demonstration. It is so noisy that I've taken over from John just for a few seconds. Well, from the muffled sounds of Brussels to the mayhem and John in Westminster. John.
Well, now you join us here at Westminster in a thoroughly unexpected and unplanned situation where there is a major demonstration in favour of the EU. These people have been singing EU, we love you. I warn you, some of the placards have some swear words on them. But these are predominantly very young people. They are the sort of 18 plus, but very, very few older people here. And it's impossible to say how many people there are here. There was a planned demonstration to be in Trafalgar Square. That was called off because it didn't have adequate police permission, and this has now developed in its stead. And I think we could certainly say there are some thousands of people here now outside Westminster in a place where you don't normally see demonstrations taking place. But there's a very significant pro-EU display of enthusiasm. Kieran Jenkins reporting, and you join us back here in Westminster for relatively unprecedented scenes here. There may have been 17 million people who did not vote this way, but there are demonstrators here on behalf of the 16 million who did. I've certainly never seen a pro-EU demonstration like this before, and Westminster's certainly not seen this sort of crowd in a very long time. But that's the scene tonight at Westminster, with the political parties imploding, the people demonstrating. That's Channel 4 News from Matt in Brussels, from me here in Westminster. That's Channel 4 News.